it's so paradigm shifting for us because we're so used to being so polarized and being like, oh, these are my political beliefs and I disagree with you, so we don't get along, we can't have a relationship or whatever. What I love about Bitcoin, this is my favorite thing actually, is when I go to my Bitcoin meetups, is and you know, first time we met in person, it's like we can connect at that level, and then everything else is kind of secondary. We can almost like disagree on. It helps like prioritize the things that humans are engaging about, and it helps us realize like most of the stuff that we hate each other about on social media aren't that important when it, you know, relative to the bigger fish that we have to fry. So you're right, Bitcoin is for everybody. It's for enemies, and you need to get comfortable if you want to be a part of this thing with people that you don't like being also users of the network.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name is Aaron. Today we're joined with friend of the channel, George Mekhail. He is the co-author of Thank God for Bitcoin. He's director of marketing for BTC Inc., which is the parent company of Bitcoin Magazine and Bitcoin Conference. He is a Bitcoin expert in all regards, in my opinion. This guy's been in Bitcoin a while. He has a lot of good insight to share. I want to talk to him about Bitcoin in today's video. George, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Aaron? Thanks for having me on again.
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to the Bitcoin conference coming up. Links below to that. I'll be there. I hope a lot of people from our audience are going. Before we get into Bitcoin, why would you give us the pitch for the Bitcoin conference in Miami coming up in April?
Definitely. So what's up, Altcoin Daily? Good to be back. Actually, a lot of your audience is coming. A lot of people using that promo code. So keep them coming. Love to see it.
10%.
10% off. Yes, it's coming up quick. The question was, what is the number one reason to...
Yeah, I'm thinking about going. Why should I go? I'm on the edge. Why should I go to Bitcoin Conference 2022?
So our tagline is education, celebration, and hyper Bitcoinization. So if any of those three things are attractive to you, then you definitely don't want to miss the conference. If you're looking to learn about Bitcoin, there is going to be content for you. If you're looking to celebrate what you have already learned about Bitcoin and sort of the success of Bitcoin over the last 10 years, there's going to be a lot for you. And if you want to be a part of accelerating hyper Bitcoinization, then this is the event to be at, because we really believe that this is a pilgrimage for Bitcoiners. Like, this is a movement. This is a global monetary reset of sound money. And when 30,000, 35,000 Bitcoiners show up in one physical location, what we're doing is we're taking ground and we are accelerating this adoption, and we're making a statement by all of us gathering and descending on one city. So join us in Miami Beach. It's going to be an unforgettable event. We're going to make history. There's going to be massive announcements, just like there was last year. So if you're not there in person, you will definitely be hearing about what goes down.
Hell yeah. I have my ticket. I've used the Altcoin Daily code in the description below. I'll be there. I hope you guys come up and say hi. But enough about that, because I'm going to record a separate one with you. We'll answer all the questions directly about the conference in a separate interview. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin in 2022. First of all, what are your feelings about Bitcoin? Are you still bullish?
Man, I hate to be a perma bull, moon boy type, but it's hard not to be bullish when you kind of have seen the events of the last 2 years, but even more recently, what's happened in Canada with people who disagree with, the government essentially getting cut off from their bank accounts, what's happening in Ukraine, where people are able to directly donate Bitcoin to people, relief efforts on the ground. Like, these types of things, like, we kind of take them for granted at this stage, right? We're 12, 13 years into this, and we forget how you previously couldn't do this. You couldn't just send money to the middle of a war, or you couldn't send money to people who got financially sanctioned by their governments. And so I think these use cases, like, look, I'm a director of marketing, so I get like advertising and all that kind of stuff. And these types of events are the best advertisements for Bitcoin. They do a much better job of anything that we can do as sort of professionals, I guess. So I am bullish. I'm also, it's kind of one of those things where it's like Bitcoin's success does coincide with some chaos in the world. And so, like, it's that scene from The Big Short, where it's like, just don't dance. It's like that right now. It feels like there's a lot to be excited about, but unfortunately, it's the backdrop is not so good. I don't think it's like Bitcoin is causing the chaos, but Bitcoin actually is a lifeboat to, or an antidote to what's happening.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I kind of feel like in, Bitcoin's 13-year history, it used to be just like one thing a year, like using Bitcoin for WikiLeaks because their payment was cut off and they had to use Bitcoin, or maybe like Silk Road, or maybe like one business like Overstock accepting Bitcoin. And now it's just like Ukraine and Russia and Canada and the truckers and all these things are just happening, and inflation and all this stuff just happening. It does kind of seem like Bitcoin still is needed, and the fact that all this stuff is happening at once is I just think it's interesting. Now,
Totally.
is there, from the Ukraine thing or the Canada thing, is there one thing in particular that you really think, oh, Bitcoin is really can rise above here?
Yeah, I think so. If you look back at Bitcoin's history and you remember the WikiLeaks thing happened, and WikiLeaks was like the first major flashpoint in Bitcoin, and it was when Satoshi was still around. And Satoshi was infamously was like, "Oh no, we've kicked the hornet's nest." Can't remember the exact quote, but he was kind of worried about it was like too early in Bitcoin's history for all that attention. I think what we're seeing now with Canada specifically, and just how quickly they came down on peaceful protesters and started cutting off bank accounts of grandmothers donating $40 to these protests. That level of financial censorship at the government level, I think, it's just amazing to look back at WikiLeaks versus now and realize, like, okay, now we're actually ready. And there's some things that we learned, I think, along the way. I think the distribution process of Bitcoin was a learning point. We're not Bitcoiners as a community, and we're not perfect, obviously. So we have some things to iron out. But I'm most excited about how good of an advertisement that was for Bitcoin. Like, hey, the money in your bank account, your fiat bank account, isn't actually yours. The government can decide that they don't like you and shut you down to later today, right? So I don't know if I'm like excited about that. It's kind of like, for me personally, I'm like, oh, dude, I got to get my stuff together. I got to learn more about the privacy features of Bitcoin. But it was definitely a wake up call and a real-time advertisement for how powerful Bitcoin can be.
Mm-hmm. And I just think, like, sometimes I hear people with, in my opinion, half-baked critiques like, oh, Bitcoin's getting political because, they think the truckers are of a certain political side. But I just think, like, this could happen if you think the trucker thing is maybe more of a conservative thing, which I don't necessarily think it is. But if you think that, the same thing could happen for like a Black Lives Matter protest, or maybe like if a person like Trump was in office and they cut off the funding, Bitcoin is here for everybody. Just like people say that Putin could use Bitcoin to avoid sanctions in Russia, but the Ukrainians are currently using it to help their funding. So it's it works for everybody who needs it.
Amen. Yeah, Bitcoin is for enemies, and that it's so paradigm shifting for us, because we're so used to being so polarized and being like, oh, these are my political beliefs and I disagree with you, so we don't get along, we can't have a relationship or whatever. What I love about Bitcoin, this is my favorite thing actually, is when I go to my Bitcoin meetups, and first time we met in person, it's like we can connect at that level, and then everything else is kind of secondary. We can almost like disagree on it helps like prioritize the things that humans are engaging about, and it helps us realize, like, most of the stuff that we hate each other about on social media aren't that important when it relative to the bigger fish that we have to fry. So you're right, Bitcoin is for everybody, it's for enemies, and you need to get comfortable, if you want to be a part of this thing, with people that you don't like being also users of the network.
Mm-hmm. Now, talk to me about being a Bitcoiner, and specifically, would you describe yourself as Bitcoin maximalist or Bitcoin maximalish? Or, I mean, there is that strong community of people who are only Bitcoin. Most of them are good people. Some of them can be toxic. I think the vast majority are great people. Sure. But talk to me about why you're a Bitcoin only type person, or how you see that in general.
Yeah, so I definitely think there's a spectrum, and the way I like to describe it, so I co-wrote the book Thank God for Bitcoin. I have like a church pastor background, super interesting side conversation we should talk about it sometime. But I do look at sort of this conversation through an evangelical or evangelist, I should say, lens, right? And the way I describe it is I like to try to be seeker sensitive. And what that means is there are people out there who have no idea what Bitcoin is, who are just learning about crypto. And some Bitcoin maximalists might come along and say, oh, you're just a shitcoiner or whatever. And my approach is more like, well, does that person who is, just trying to figure out the ecosystem, do they even know what you mean when you say shitcoiner? Because I have my doubts. I know when I first started in Bitcoin in 2017, I sort of dabbled in a bunch of different coins. And where I found myself going was those are not that interesting to me personally. I'd like to describe altcoins and everything outside of Bitcoin as like, look, if you're a trader, that's probably cool. It's, it's not for me. Or if you're a gambler, frankly, like if you like to just be like, hey, I'm going to throw some money over here and see what happens. Like, great. I don't come as hard on like the moral sort of judgment of like, oh, you're a shitcoiner, so we need to like dismiss you out of pocket. I'll make some exceptions for people who do like legitimately promote scams. There are like legit scams in the space that need to be called out and need to be addressed and confronted. But I don't think that it's like the type of thing where we need to be overly, I guess, judgmental, for lack of a better word. I think what needs to happen is people need to be educated. We need to have conversations with people. Again, most people that you call a shitcoiner don't know they're a quote unquote shitcoiner. So that's kind of my approach. So am I a Bitcoin maximalist? I only hold Bitcoin. So whatever that means. I understand where Bitcoin maximalists are coming from. And I actually would say even the most extreme people on the spectrum, the toxic Bitcoin maximalists, I equate them, to kind of just use this analogy further, to like the fire and brimstone type preacher who's like, if you don't repent, you're going to hell, right? There's something that you got to appreciate about the conviction of that fire and brimstone preacher who's like, this is what he like believes, right? Like, get your life right, or if you die, you're going to be very sad and you're going to go to hell, like whatever, like theological conversation you want to have about that. But that my point is there is a spectrum, and I find myself trying to be, again, seeker sensitive. That's why I come on your show. I think a lot of people in your audience are probably just curious, and they don't necessarily make the distinction between Bitcoin and everything else. And unless we talk about it, like there's just, these conversations aren't taking place.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that in the past couple of years, and every cycle something like this happens, but particularly in the last couple of years, Ethereum and other like open source DApp platforms have gained popularity, NFTs have gained popularity, the meme coins like Dogecoin gained popularity in, if nothing but speculation, some of them. Do you think stuff like that helps people get turned on to Bitcoin, hurts people coming into Bitcoin, or has, no great effect on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that it helps on the longer, it helps people like eventually get to Bitcoin. In other words, I think it's a bit of a gateway drug. So it helps in the sense that if you're me, from my perspective, I want people to realize that Bitcoin is its own unique thing and there's something special like going on with it. And so if somebody stumbles upon Bitcoin through the Ethereum rabbit hole or through the Dogecoin rabbit hole, or they see Elon tweeting about it or whatever, and they're like, what's this? And then eventually they find their way to Bitcoin. To me, that's helpful. I'm also very anti government intervention and regulation and stuff. So I don't think the answer is like, oh, we need to crack down on all these, there's too much chaos. It's the Wild West or whatever. So I think there is this tension of like, the Wild West is good. The free market is figuring itself out. People just need to kind of just find their way to Bitcoin, and maybe it's going to be painful along the way, right? Because, most people didn't have a good time with Dogecoin. And so like, I just think that at the end of the day, my whole thing with the entire ecosystem is like, what I wish would happen is that the people who are ideologically aligned, that we need a monetary revolution, that the fiat system is broken, that we need sound money, that we need to get the money printer out of the control of central bankers. There's a lot of us in the broader sort of crypto space who are aligned on that. But I feel like our attention and our focus and our work is so divided amongst all of these projects. And I feel like if we can all kind of come together and build on Bitcoin, that's the ultimate dream. So is that, too optimistic? Probably. But again, I think if there wasn't somebody who was trying to educate me on Bitcoin, then, I probably wouldn't be here. So I'm just trying to kind of pay it forward.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts for, let's get to the obligatory price prediction question. What are your thoughts for 2022? Like, you're bullish on Bitcoin? How bullish are you, George?
I mean, look, I got my price prediction so wrong last year that I hesitate to even put a number on it. What I'm learning is that the halving actually really matters. And when people say it's priced in, it doesn't seem like it is priced in. So I'm more like confident bullish on the next halving cycle that we're going to see exponential growth, just like we have historically. But I would be shocked if we did not hit 100K by the end of this year, and hopefully much higher. But again, I said that last year, so take that with a grain of salt.
Totally. That's kind of bullish. So nobody wants to give a price prediction. We've had plenty of Bitcoiners and crypto people on. I always ask them, especially Bitcoiners, you give us the price prediction. They all just roll their eyes because they don't like, just I'm thinking like Will Clemente, who's a great guy and an analyst. He didn't want to give the price prediction because the market was down. And yeah, dude, I think that's bullish though, that it'll surprise people.
100K easy again.
Yeah.
Still got my laser eyes.
Nice. Any final thoughts on Bitcoin or any final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience?
Just keep tuning in, keep researching. And I think check out the book, honestly, if you're into understanding sort of the moral implications, which is really our argument in the book is that the fiat system is broken. And we spend probably 80% of the book just talking about the current monetary system. And then the last 2 chapters talking about why Bitcoin is the solution. So those would be my final thoughts.
So I don't have to be that religious to get value out of the book?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm not even that religious. I don't go to church or anything like that anymore. Used to be a pastor, so I understand the Bible and the Jesus narrative and all those things. And I still find a lot of value in sort of having a moral compass in terms of just really practical tools for humanity, like, don't kill people, don't steal, all that kind of stuff is still helpful. And so when you apply sort of biblical principles to how we're living life today, there's a lot of parallels with Bitcoin.
I love it. Check out the book, get the book, meet up with George and I at the conference, 10% off, get your tickets below. And 100K guaranteed this year, straight from George's mouth. Just kidding. Thank you, George. Oh, and everybody make sure we're going to drop a video very soon. George is going to answer all your questions about the conference being released within less than a week from this video. So make sure you tune in for that one too. I'll link it below eventually. But anyways, thanks guys. Thanks, George.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Like the video. Everybody, if you're still listening, like the video. All right.